We interrupt regular programming to bring you this weather alert.
At this time, we are unable to get a hold of Metro. We'll get a hold of Jasco and have them try to get somebody your way, Bruce. She's got her family in a pickup here. It looks pretty much like DOA.
All I can say is it looks very reminiscent of what we saw last month in, Tuscaloosa.
That first look, I just smelled death. I saw death. I know that look. But at the end of it all, it's the people that lose everything. And their lives are completely turned upside down.
May 22nd, 2011.
Joplin, Missouri.
Joplin.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly. Today we are talking about a highly requested tornado, one that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I wanted to really do it right and do it justice, and that is the 2011 Joplin tornado. The story of the Joplin tornado is easily one of the most infamous in modern history. It's a tornado tragedy that is almost unmatched in terms of devastation and long-lasting impacts. Even in such a prolific year for tornadoes in 2011 with the super outbreak, Joplin still stands out among all of those. And it's hard to state just how impactful this event was for Joplin, for the entire community for Missouri, and the weather community as a whole. It's often said that reality is stranger than fiction, and Joplin, Missouri knows this best. Joplin sits on the southwest corner of Missouri, bordering Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Joplin is known for a lot more than just this tornado. Joplin is nestled in beautiful landscape with landmarks like the Shoal Creek and Grand Falls, attractions for tourists like Route 66 that goes through it. They have a Bonnie and Clyde exhibit where they actually were hiding in Joplin for several weeks. The city of Joplin began when lead was actually discovered in the Joplin Creek Valley just before the Civil War. By the start of the 20th century, Joplin is in full swing with Main Street. They have bars, homes, hotels, and rail lines for mining. By the late 20th and into the 21st century, Joplin is a full-size city. And by 2011, the population of Joplin is at 49,000. Geographically speaking, Missouri and the Joplin area are no stranger to tornadoes. While they don't sit in that classic tornado alley region that we often talk about on this channel, they are still prone to tornadoes, particularly in the spring and early summer months. And while it might be easy to think that living in a more tornado-prone region would make people more prepared and more aware of the weather, that's not always the case.
Growing up, we would see little tornadoes. The sirens would go off. Sirens go off all the time here, and nothing ever happened. So you just get to where you're not too concerned about those. You figure you can make it to safety, or you'll know something is serious in time.
People have what's called a siren mentality. They're so used to hearing the sirens that they tend to either not shelter or need some kind of second affirmation that they are in danger. But now that we have a little bit more context about Joplin itself, let's talk about the May 22nd, 2011 outbreak and the meteorology behind it. The spring of 2011 unleashed some of the most wicked and powerful tornadoes we've seen in our generation. By the end of the year, a staggering 1,703 tornadoes would be confirmed in the United States just in that 1 year. So to produce all of these wicked, violent tornadoes in 1 year, of course there were incredibly powerful kinematic setups to accompany them. The Joplin outbreak is no different. The Joplin tornado, and what would ultimately be an actually pretty intense outbreak, starts off with a closed low moving through the northern plains, and would actually end up becoming slightly negative tilted. The negative tilt is often associated with more intense, severe weather. In addition to that low pressure system, a cold front is moving from the north and west as well, funneling cool, dry air on the backside in addition to a dry line. Now, the dry line acts as the lifting mechanism for storms and will often be the initiation point as well. Of course, because this is the spring moving into the summer months, there is also ample moisture advecting from the Gulf of Mexico into these states as well. This low pressure system, this cool air on the backside, and the dry line are all setting up to meet just west of Missouri by Sunday, May 22nd. It's already looking concerning for Missouri. One last concerning piece to note is a gravity wave. Gravity waves aren't an uncommon thing or a phenomenon of any sort. They happen all the time. But when they happen with severe weather, they can be a little bit more impactful. This is because a gravity wave has the ability to compress a thunderstorm, which ultimately results in storms rotating faster than usual and for their updrafts to tilt a little bit more. Forecasters are becoming increasingly confident as time goes by. This could potentially be a larger scale outbreak. Sunday, May 22nd, 2011, the day of the outbreak. Forecasters' concerns are coming to fruition. The morning data collected actually shows dew points in excess of 70, which is really intense. That's perfect for tornadoes. And we can actually see all these factors if we look at a sounding taken on this day. You'll see that the CAPE, the convective available potential energy in the atmosphere, starts out around 1,000 to 1,500, which is really all the storms would need. But you can actually see the CAPE go up over 4,000 into 4,500 joules per kilogram, which is explosive. So seeing that the atmosphere is only going to continue to deteriorate, the National Weather Service and Storm Prediction Center very quickly decide to issue a moderate risk. This includes much of Missouri and Joplin as well. With that moderate risk, the Storm Prediction Center also decides to issue hatched risks for tornadoes as well. This meaning that there's a likelihood that these tornadoes could be EF-5 or stronger. By 1:30 p.m., the local National Weather Service decides that the tornado threat is prevalent enough that they would go ahead and issue a tornado watch for the region. And with the dynamic support of the atmosphere, we're not talking about regular tornadoes, we're talking about stronger to long track supercells and tornadoes. It's a Sunday, it's sunny outside. A lot of people actually don't realize that on days of severe weather, it being sunny is the worst case scenario, and so you have a lot of people who are actually going out and taking their kids to the park and doing things with family and friends because it doesn't seem to a lot of people like the weather is going to be intense.
I remember it was just a very hot and humid day that day, and you can kind of see a storm rolling in from the west.
I was actually attending my son's graduation. It was the high school graduation here in town. The skies were starting to become a little overcast.
By early afternoon on May 22nd, storms are beginning to fire off and very quickly beginning to move into that more primed atmosphere.
You could see some thunderstorms building off to the west of the city.
There's a storm you see coming across the Kansas border now, just about to make it to the Joplin area. We also have some showers and storms across northern Arkansas.
This is exactly what the SPC had been concerned about, a lot of these storms being discrete, which allows them to form supercell thunderstorms and begin to rotate out on their own. This is particularly dangerous because these discrete individual supercells can essentially use up all the energy that's out there in the atmosphere without having to share it with anything else. It's virtually an unhindered, untapped potential for them. A rogue cell forms west of Missouri, starting out relatively disorganized and triggering a few radar-indicated tornado warnings as it moves eastward.
Away. All right, let's move into Missouri. We're still dealing with strong and severe thunderstorms.
This cell would eventually cross from northeastern Oklahoma into southwestern Missouri. It's at this time that this supercell actually merges with another. And while it's easy to think that one of the storms would choke off the other or this would make it more disorganized, it was the opposite. The merging of these two cells would make them much stronger, and the storm rapidly begins to intensify as these two cells merge into one. Just to the west of Joplin, Missouri, this new and larger supercell begins to develop a pronounced mesocyclone as it now moves into Missouri.
There's a storm you see coming across the Kansas border now, just about to make it to the Joplin area.
Fortunately, on this day, there were plenty of storm chasers out in the area ahead of the cells to anticipate them and film the entire process. They quickly begin to note an increased area of rotation and a wall cloud beginning to drop down.
Well, we are getting reports that most of the rain has passed through there, but they are seeing what people are considering a wall cloud, 20 to 30 miles per hour.
National Weather Service just said there was some small rotation on the west side of Joplin, Black Cat, and 20th Street area. We had an anonymous phone call of 2 funnel clouds in the Loma Linda area, and then they hung up.
Just as the storm is rotating enough, there's actually an initial tornado warning at 5:09 p.m. A 3-minute siren goes off at 5:11 p.m. from this first tornado warning in the more rural areas just west of the city. Very soon after, the storm spotters catch on film the tornado tightening up and eventually producing a funnel on the ground. The Joplin tornado has just been born. The tornado touches down just east of the Kansas-Missouri border. At this point where it's being filmed, just having touched down, it's at EF-0 intensity, not hitting any buildings or homes. It's just kind of moving through the rural areas to the west of Joplin. Because of those storm spotters, the response was immediate. At 5:17 p.m., the National Weather Service issues the official tornado warning for Newton and Jasper counties, which includes Joplin.
Stations, National Weather Service has issued a tornado warning. The storm has a history of producing funnel clouds and tennis ball-sized hail.
With the sirens being activated early on in the tornado's life, this gives Joplin a 17-minute advanced warning from the time the sirens go off until the time the tornado actually hits. Again, it's Sunday. People are out going about doing things. They're with their family. They're not paying attention to the weather. The tornado is rapidly approaching Joplin, and people don't realize it.
We got RFD. Okay, hold on. Oh, it's getting big. That is huge. That's a wedge. I got it. Debris.
KCRG News Time is 5:28. We're live storm team coverage here on the stations of San. Please do take heed. Get in your tornado shelters right now. We can't stress this enough.
By just after 5:30, the tornado is now moving into Joplin.
The tornado has touched down in the city of Joplin.
The first area of population that the twister moves into is Black Cat Road and Schifferdecker Avenue. This area largely consists of homes and the Schifferdecker Park, and it is immediately causing an intense amount of damage. A subdivision just east of Iron Gates Road takes heavy damage. At EF-2 to EF-3 intensity in some parts, many homes are heavily damaged, some are destroyed, and cars are even thrown at this intensity as well.
Oh gosh, okay, got it. There, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There it is. There it is.
This is going right in the heart of Joplin, ain't it?
It's gonna go just north. Oh no, you're right, it is.
Just for information, we have power lines down on a car.
We'd started getting reports of debris and damage, so we discontinued emergency responses and had our crews take shelter until after the storm passed.
272, 223.
At 5:38 p.m., another siren is sounded for 3 minutes for the entire city.
I'm scared. No.
That is the portion of the storm that we have been concerned with.
Tornado sirens once
Tornado
again.
sirens once again going off in Joplin. Those are definitely power flashes that we are seeing on the ground.
I am telling you to
yes,
take cover
right now.
We do have a
Folks,
tornado on the ground.
This is a tornado. Yeah, this is a very dangerous situation. We cannot stress this enough.
At this point, the tornado also becomes rain-wrapped, which is another worst-case scenario for Joplin. Even though they're looking at the tornado in the distance or perhaps even up close, it looks like a rain cloud. It looks like just a big dark mass of rain, not realizing that it's actually the tornado itself.
And when I looked at it, I couldn't see around the sides of it. And then when I looked up, it didn't end. And so I'd never seen anything quite like that.
Things are about to go from bad to much worse in Joplin as the tornado is now approaching not only more populated areas, but areas that include essential parts of the community. The next streets the tornado moves through is the South Maiden Street. Not only were there dozens upon dozens of homes in this neighborhood, this is where the St. John's Regional Medical Facility was as well.
I looked up the window and I had to put my hands cupped around my eyes so that I could see up against the glass. It was raining, the wind was blowing really hard. Then I noticed something in the foreground off to the left, and I began to look, and what it was materials dropping out of the sky. Literally, a rooftop fell and landed in the parking lot.
We have confirmed tornadoes, and then actually we have one still on the ground. It's actually encompassing and probably affecting Interstate 44 as we speak. Right now we have Barry, Lawrence, Newton, and Jasper County. Again, Jasper County, that's where Joplin, Missouri is.
Unfortunately, there's not too much they can do to prepare as the tornado approaches very quickly. There's not much they can do in terms of moving the patients that are on ventilators or different machines. All they can do is really brace for impact and wait.
The medical staff takes cover, hoping there's enough time to save themselves. Their hope is to help others in the aftermath of the storm, if they survive.
But all of a sudden you realize that if it hits this hospital, we have really very little, if any, cover, and these people that are around us are going to need our help. And we don't know how long it's going to last. The wind was rushing so fast, and the wind was blowing so hard, You couldn't even hear the windows blow out.
No, it is certainly going off. Caitlin, I'm just looking out the door right now. Please do not go outside and try to track this storm, folks. You can't see anything outside. It is rain wrapped. This is a dangerous, dangerous situation at this point in time.
The now massive 3/4 mile wide EF-4 tornado moves over the hospital, causing massive damage. Steel trusses were rolled up like paper, all of the windows were blown out, support beams from the hospital were thrown or mangled, almost every single car in the parking lot was smashed or tossed, the hospital's helicopter was thrown, even concrete stops in the parking lot were peeled up as well.
5 miles? Hey, where you at?
Hear that?
I hear that.
That's not just wind.
Snap. We got a tornado over here. Biggie. Oh, there you go. Oh. Oh.
Something's in the tree.
At this point, the tornado is high-end EF-4 intensity. It's causing a swath of extreme catastrophic damage right over the most populated areas of Joplin. Just after 5:40 p.m., the twister moves over Main Street, where the Franklin Technical Center, Joplin High School, and Emerson Elementary School are. These areas take intense damage. The footage from the Joplin High School is incredible. These areas, including the Joplin High School and the Technical Center, were in a swath of what was considered to be catastrophic damage. All along Main Street between 20th and 26th Streets, EF-5 intensity damage was occurring as the core of the storm moves over the center of Joplin.
We're going to continue to track this storm at this point in time.
I don't think it's going to hit our station. We don't anticipate that. But take shelter anyways.
Yeah, take shelter immediately, folks.
Listen to it. What? Sounds like a tornado. Oh snap! Do we have anywhere to go here?
Ready, guys? Come here. Grab that baby. Grab that baby. Guys, come in here.
Get over here and sit down.
Okay, I want all these kids right here.
You guys need open windows. My dad wants to.
This is a massive area of homes and businesses throughout these streets, which were completely destroyed.
I think we might want to go outside here a little bit. Right at us.
There's a window right there. There's a window.
Right on us. Oh my God.
Okay, hold count. It's okay.
Okay, son.
Okay.
Oh my fucking God. We have no health left. None. The whole thing's gone. Look at that fucking board. Go look at this shit.
Several people in this area where their homes were never found their cars because they were either too mangled or thrown too far away, and they just never found their cars again. At 5:45, the tornado leaves the Joplin High School region and moves onto Connecticut Avenue. This area would have confirmed EF-5 intensity damage as it moves through, and it's now a mile wide.
Oh boy.
Jesus. Oh yeah.
It's not like people at home. That's power lines going down.
No time.
What about that Home Depot? Would that be a bad spot, or I don't know? That's all I see. What's by? Oh, go, just go.
Oh no, all right, it's behind him. Oh, good God.
This is bad, really bad.
Jesus, that's a monster. This.
Oh,
explosion. Oh my God.
Power flash.
Oh,
That's
it is
monster,
right there.
man.
Oh my goodness. Oh, the power flash is going on. Oh my God. Oh, that was right there.
It's right there.
Unreal. Holy shit. Oh my God.
I'm shaking.
So am I.
Oh my God.
Along Connecticut Avenue points east is where most of the larger retailers in Joplin are located. So the tornado is about to move over areas with the most essential businesses, small and large businesses, retailers, all of the restaurants, all of the parts of town that are essential. The tornado is taking a mile-wide path directly over them.
All right, guys. Start getting in rooms.
We got room right here.
That one's got a window.
Oh, let her in. Quick. Come on down the hallway. Come on down.
Black.
It's a worst case scenario for a Sunday afternoon for major retailers as people are out with their family shopping, they're going out to eat, they're doing all these things, and the now EF-5 intensity tornado is very rapidly approaching them. It's rain wrapped, people aren't able to see it well, and it's not like they can just quickly leave the area either. The tornado is massive.
To the south of us on the ground, we can see it on our tower cam.
Absolutely, and
Once again, this is producing a lot of precipitation. If you go outside, you may not be able to see it. Take shelter now. It looks like this is a pretty powerful tornado. You can see that it was taking out those transformers.
Absolutely.
It continues to push off to the east in Joplin. A very dangerous situation. Once again, very dangerous lightning, some very large hail.
Our whole roof is gone. We will be out of service. We do have excessive damage to station 4. Yeah, possible tornado, 13th degree north.
One of our officers was on the east side of town, and the tornado took a southerly turn and started heading right towards where his location was.
321, 223. I'm on range line now. You may head that way.
Keep an eye out because we're not sure where it's going or where it's headed.
The tornado is now over Range Line Road. The first business to take a direct hit was the Lowe's. Next, it moves on to other large retailers like Hobby Lobby, the Academy Sports, Home Depot, the Walmart took a massive hit, a Walgreens, and a Pizza Hut. There were so many businesses on this road, I'm not even covering most of them.
Waters, I'm in the tornado.
Copy. Copy. If you can, try to find a shelter or somewhere to pull underneath. You injured?
So we, of course, took radio silence for him at that point.
I think I'm north of it, but I don't know.
He did finally seek coverage under the bridge.
I should have drove through the back. I'm good.
Some of the most graphic photos, some of the most horrific visuals and stories and fatalities came from these areas of these stores. One particularly tragic story came from the Pizza Hut where 15 people were inside the store, but the manager, whose name was Christopher Laqueus, Christopher grabs all of the customers, all of the employees, and puts them in the freezer of the Pizza Hut, grabs a bungee cord and decides to wrap it around his arm and the door and try to hold it as tight as he can. Unfortunately, the tornado is at EF-5 intensity. It's too much, and Christopher is pulled out of the freezer. He died protecting every other person in that building, and when you look at the footage of the aftermath of that Pizza Hut, nothing is left standing. You can see the floor of the freezer and everything else is just completely collapsed. After moving away from Rangeline Road at 550, the tornado now moves into Duquesne Road in southeast Joplin. The intensity can be seen here as well at the local Fast Trip. There is a clip of someone who was in the Fast Trip with his friend. This footage, while everyone did survive in this Fast Trip, was extremely disturbing because it really displays thoughts and feelings of the people as they feel like they're actually about to die in the storm.
I love everyone, man. Yeah, I love all you guys. We're gonna be okay. I love you.
Jesus.
We need to call somebody.
Be careful, there's glass.
Are you okay? I'm trying, I'm like a push. I'm sorry.
I'm right here. Is it done? I'm okay.
You can hear people praying, people saying they love each other. I mean, it's really gut-wrenching that you watch this clip and know that at this time, everyone in there actually probably thinks they're about to die. By 5:58 p.m., the tornado is beginning to weaken very quickly across Kinzer Road. And this is still intense damage. It's not quite the EF-5 intensity that we saw earlier to the main part of town, but there are still hundreds of homes that take some type of relatively intense damage. And by 6:12 p.m., the monster tornado has finally ended.
We have no house left. None. The whole thing's gone. It's gone. It's gone. All right, let's get it.
Talking massive damage in Joplin, Missouri. We're going to have our great tornado hunt report live coming up in just a few minutes, but let's talk about what's going on right now. Large and dangerous tornado moving through Joplin, Missouri. Here's the live picture. That is a regional hospital there. You see Mike Bettis in the picture there. Look, those used to be homes there. They are gone.
News crews actually arrived so quickly on the scene that they get this incredibly raw, emotional view of the direct aftermath of the tornado.
It's really it chokes you up when you see what's happened here, Paul. I mean, take a look. I mean, it's everything. It's just completely demolished. I mean, homes are destroyed. Families' lives have been turned upside down at this point. And all I can say is it looks very reminiscent of what we saw last month in, excuse me, in Tuscaloosa.
Mike, are you all right? You're seeing some just terrible things, I'm sure, and I know you were there just moments after the tornado hit. To be there and actually witness this devastation, it's just incredible.
Yeah, and Mike, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's,
you come out here and you're trying to find research, trying to find, what could and can't cause storms, and then you come across this. This has got to take your breath away, buddy.
It's tough. No question about that.
There's so much devastation through a wide swath of Joplin. It was hard for emergency services to even really know where to start with. Thousands upon thousands of calls were coming in for help, and in addition to that, the main hospital took a direct hit.
And then really the stunning image is the hospital back here. That's St. John's Regional Medical Center. It has taken a significant hit. You can see the people that are down there by the ambulance. It's just the images go on forever, it seems like. If you look back there through that neighborhood, it is endless damage here in Joplin.
The hospital getting hit and taking significant damage is one of the focal points of the story of Joplin. When you imagine a tornado going through to the city, the hospital is one of the most essential, if not the most essential place that people need to go. So now people are bringing their loved ones to this hospital that's destroyed. Thankfully, however, there was another hospital relatively close to the center of Joplin that did not take a hit from the tornado, the Freeman Hospital West. Immediately, the patients from the St. John's Hospital are evacuated. They are transported to this other hospital. EMS was fairly quickly able to triage and assess and send people where they needed to go.
Broadcasting live from the darkened KZRG 24-hour storm center. Power is out. We are running backup generators at this hour.
And it was like driving through a war zone, needless to say. As soon as we topped this little crest, you could see the hospital.
I understand, I got calls from the station that the hospital's here. I'm trying to get to that side of town. We're just people, Josh, stunned. We are standing sobbing.
She's got her family in a pickup here. Looks pretty much like DOA.
At this time, we are unable to get a hold of Metro. We'll get a hold of Jasco and have them try to get somebody your way, Bruce.
Also, be advised we have propane leaking heavily here at this propane cell point.
Okay, copy. 757 Jasco Firewest. Towards the end of this event, we do have a tremendous amount of debris out here in the 2 area. Looks like this is going to be very near the path of the tornado.
We had literally thousands, if not tens of thousands, of 911 calls in the first 24 hours.
The 911 phone did not stop ringing. You couldn't pick up the phone to try and call anybody or try to do anything without there being somebody there. At one point, it shut the system.
By nightfall, over 1,500 people in Joplin were still unaccounted for. That's over 1,000 people in the community that weren't found because they were either deceased or in the rubble somewhere. That's a horrifying amount of time to have to wait to find someone you know. Everyone from the community and emergency management would continue throughout the night performing search and rescue, trying to dig people out, coming across bodies, and just assessing the kind of damage that was there, which buildings had been destroyed. This is the most critical time after the tornado because people are trapped, and each day that goes by without finding someone, their survival chances decrease significantly.
We also have a student on board, Heidi. She's in the back.
I had to be a guardian angel.
I could hear Dee crying in the house, and she said, "Help me."
And I went down like this and held the door up against like this until the tornado passed.
Pretty much we've lost everything, but you know, it's still going to be the next day tomorrow. So.
That was different because I wasn't in it initially. I was sent there the day after. This was a storm that developed and basically took on its own monster. Came upon the same kind of stuff. I saw that look. I remembered that look. That first look of I just smelled death, I saw death, I know that look. And just the horror that comes with chaos, people scrambling, wondering what happened to their families, what happened to everything they owned that was literally destroyed just like that. The pictures of the job, I mean, Home Depot, steel rebar, twisted like licorice. It looked like, you know, Beirut. I mean, buildings were shot up, concrete, road stripped. I mean, asphalt stripped off the road. I mean, it's unbelievable sights. But at the end of it all, it's the people that lose everything. And their lives are completely turned upside down.
I saw what appeared. I don't.
I see orange. I bet it
Yeah.
is. What is that? I don't know what that is. Unidentified.
Behind the gas station, it was pretty much just an open field. Our car was picked up and set down. All right, here's the gas station that we were at. That right there is where we climbed out. All the shelving was falling down.
The Pizza Hut on Joplin's Rangeline Road.
It's gone.
Daniel Fluhart is a survivor.
The only reason we survived is because he held the door shut with a strap.
Fluhart says his manager, a man named Christopher Laqueus, saved lives. From inside the freezer, his manager then did something heroic.
He ran in and grabbed this bungee cord, wrapped it around, and was holding it. And then when everything blew away, he was gone, the door was gone, everything.
Everything except the lives a father of two died to save.
I don't know. Just drive straight.
Call him and see where he wants us to meet him. I have no idea.
We're at St. John's. Yeah, we're at St. John's now. Go to the intersection, go back.
Okay, so we're going to now take a look at the official damage totals. According to the United States Census Bureau, in total, the Joplin tornado would track a 22-mile path directly through the south center of Joplin. The damage swath covered 7.4 miles, equivalent to nearly a quarter of Joplin. Official wind totals for this tornado were estimated to be over 200 miles per hour, and it also didn't take long for them to find EF-5 intensity damage. The highest wind speeds estimated were somewhere between 225 and 250 miles per hour. Ultimately, there's still a lot of mystery about how strong tornadoes are at the surface, but that is the estimation. Based on the American Red Cross's evaluation, 25% of Joplin, a quarter of the entire city, was destroyed. That includes 2,000 buildings completely destroyed, not just damaged. That includes 7,000 homes, which were completely destroyed, and another 850 plus, which took damage. All in all, according to the National Weather Service in conjunction with Joplin's emergency management, over 75% of Joplin took some kind of damage. The hospital ended up taking so much structural damage. Apparently, part of the top towers actually were rotated several inches, so the hospital naturally ended up having to be completely destroyed. Same thing with the Joplin High School. It was so compromised structurally that they decided it needed to be torn down and rebuilt. Same with many of the homes in this area. Thousands needed to be completely demolished. Ultimately, more than 20,000 people were directly impacted by this storm. As I mentioned before, the next couple days, Joplin is still so much in shock. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They're still trying to find bodies of missing people. Not to mention the majority of all of the essential things in town were destroyed. But despite all of this, Joplin was ready to clean up and rebuild. One of the first major steps in a city moving on after a disaster is the cleanup process. With a total of 20,000 people impacted by this tornado, over 9,000 of them were displaced and needed a home. This was one of the most immediate concerns after the first couple of days, and usually is a point where a lot of people choose to leave once they realize their home has to be completely destroyed and then rebuilt. Fortunately, FEMA and several other government agencies came in very swiftly to set up thousands of temporary housing units for these people. As you can see, it wasn't the most comfortable, but it was enough. They've dealt with sort of the housing crisis of people needing a place to stay, those 9,000 displaced people. But now you have 9,000 people living in this temporary community, people of all different kinds of religion, of political affiliation and background, people of different socioeconomic status, people who maybe just wouldn't normally like or associate with each other on any given day. But because of this tragedy, those 9,000 people came together, did what they had to do, and lived in these tiny little box homes for months and up to a year. This is a huge testament to how resilient Joplin is, the people of Joplin. The cleanup was no easy feat either. 3 million cubic yards of debris had to be cleaned up. I don't really know how to conceptualize that. You can see from the footage that it's a massive amount of debris throughout the city. So you can just imagine how big of a task this is to try to get everything cleaned and then start to rebuild. Thousands of people, several government agencies, state agencies, local businesses, people from out of state, all came to help the city of Joplin clean up and provide assistance in any way that they could, whether that be physically doing labor to help clean up, providing their services, providing funding, giving food and shelter. There were thousands of people who donated their time and effort in the cleanup and recovery process. In fact, just a couple months later, Joplin had cleaned up most of the debris and was able to start rebuilding homes.
There's something to be said for how much progress Joplin has made since that night. The debris is mostly cleared and people are truly moving on.
We have a united focus on rebuilding the city and, coming back better than we were before. The number of volunteers that came to the city to help is just absolutely beyond description.
The official death toll for the Joplin tornado sits at 161, and that official death toll comes from the National Weather Service. Out of the 161 victims in the Joplin tornado, the ages ranged from 1-year-old Hayes Howard all the way to 92-year-old Margaret Tuitt, to the just graduated Will Norton, who was pulled out of the sunroof on his way home from his graduation with his father. That's 161 people who had a whole family, 161 people who died a violent death. So outside of talking about the numbers, let's think about people who lost a family member, a friend, a sibling. And looking outside of just the fatalities, there were thousands of people in Joplin who were left with life-altering injuries. There were people who were mangled, people who lost limbs, people who were permanently disfigured. I think that's something that's not talked about very often. Not to mention the tens of thousands of people, pretty much the entire city, that was majorly traumatized from this event. Thousands of people who now have PTSD from storms, who are just terrified of hearing thunder.
The tornado ripped through this neighborhood. When it did, it also took one of Matt's legs.
On my bone in my left arm, I've titanium plates in there still. Compound fracture of my tibia, femur, and sent my kneecap flying. I also endured 2 spinal fractures, skull fracture, severe whiplash that's caused a bulging disc in my neck and a broken pinky.
A decade later, Matt's body still gives him other tiny reminders of that awful day.
It was about 2 months ago I pulled a piece of wood out of my head again, or glass, gravel, and it still continues to this day.
Sadly, his mind is in just as much pain.
A storm rolls through and I shut down. All I can do is shake and cry.
The death by damage zone map shows 154 deaths, or 95% of the deaths occurring within those EF-5 intensity level catastrophic damage areas. One really staggering fact I came across, 42%, almost half of the deaths that occurred in Joplin on this day were from those larger retail stores like the Walmart, the Home Depot. With the Home Depot specifically, 2 walls of the Home Depot store collapsed inward like a domino effect after the roof was lifted off, and 7 people were killed there. 3 people died in the Walmart. 3 people in the Harmony Heights Baptist Church were also killed. 3 died at the Elks Lodge, which was preparing for bingo night. 6 people died in the St. John's Regional Medical Center, 5 of which were on ventilators, and 1 who was crushed, as we've mentioned. Car deaths were also staggeringly high. 2 Joplin residents would die at a Carthage, Missouri nursing home. 1 passed away of a brain hemorrhage, 1 from a spinal cord injury after a wall fell down on them. 2 Joplin residents also died at a nursing home in Granby, Missouri. Both apparently died from emotional trauma. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about here. Died from emotional trauma. I don't know, I think a lot of times the deaths are sort of glossed over. It makes us very desensitized when we talk about the numbers in that way. Because to me, hearing 1,000 injuries, that's extremely blanketed. That's extremely generalized. So to talk about it a little more in depth gives us a more human perception, a more emotional touch to the event we're talking about. It gives us a better connection to the people who actually experience these things. To continue on fatalities, I know I mentioned that several fatalities were indirect out of the total 161. This is where things start to get really strange in our story. As if the fatalities and injuries weren't bad enough, stranger things continued to happen in Joplin. The most prevalent injuries when it comes to tornadoes are blunt force injuries, they're gashes, gapes. They're generally a lot of flesh wounds, and it's not uncommon to get infections, specifically with tornadoes. With tornadoes, you have mud, dirt, debris, things that don't belong flying around, impaling into your skin. Several days after these patients are in the hospital, the doctors start to notice something really strange on several of the patients from the Joplin tornado. Those with flesh wounds start to see their wounds darken. In some cases, this substance would even grow white spots that would grow on skin as if it were old bread. It was mold, this mold appearing on a total of 13 of the patients. Doctors are trying to figure out what's going on, but none of the medicines given for typical fungal infections are working. It's bad enough that the CDC sends out their mycotic disease specialist team to go in and take samples and figure out what's going on. The CDC is able to identify the infection as, I'm going to butcher this, mucormycosis. This specific fungus lives in soil and water, and it will feed on dead plants. It's never something that's found on the top of soil typically. Despite having gotten the correct treatment soon after, it would actually kill 5 more people of those 13 that were initially infected. I will show you guys a picture of the fungus. I'm giving you a graphic warning now. If you don't want to look at fungus in a wound, please skip ahead like 10 seconds. I'll show it to you. The next thing we're going to talk about isn't based in research like I normally like to incorporate. It appeals to the emotional side of us. If you've read enough about the Joplin tornado, you are familiar with the butterfly people. The butterfly people continue to be a mystery in Joplin. No one can really explain it to you apart from the children who claim to have seen them all throughout the Joplin tornado and after as well. In these children's stories, these butterfly people were there to protect the people and the children of Joplin as they went through the storm. Many of the children would claim that the butterfly people would hug them or hold them, and in some cases, the butterfly people would even accompany some of the people that were taken by the storm. About half of the children who were counseled afterwards at the Joplin Child Trauma Treatment Centers were interviewed. And none of these children had contact with one another, and they all gave eerily similar responses. These stories were told to parents, they were told to counselors, they were told all around the city of Joplin, and it eventually became an integral part of the story of the Joplin tornado. So much so, in fact, the story of the butterfly people protecting Joplin through the tornado is now a mural in Joplin on 15th and Main Street. It's there today. You can go see it. And if you ask anyone in Joplin about the butterfly people, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. One of the single most incredible things, in my opinion, about Joplin is that this tornado never deterred the population. We talked about the population in 2011, which was 49,000. And that barely changed after this tornado. We've talked about tornadoes like Greensburg, where over half of the population left and never returned. Not the case for Joplin. The way that everyone handled this event was also beyond what I can describe. The emergency management, all the medical staff, the citizens of Joplin, every single person, every single volunteer, every single agency involved, FEMA, Red Cross, all of them did an outstanding job. Joplin has averaged nearly 5 new homes every week since 2011 for a total of 2,524 new single-family home permits to date.
Joplin proper is exploding.
Not all of that is rebuilding from the tornado, I gather.
No, it is not, but I look at it as a continuance. I look at it as Joplin's way of saying, you can't hold us back, you can't stop us.
They've opened a new senior center, they rebuilt the hospital, they gave Joplin High School a brand new state-of-the-art facility, they've rebuilt the entire Main Street, they added a new public library, One of my favorite new additions to the city of Joplin is the Butterfly Garden and Overlook project in Cunningham Park, which serves as an open space of recovery and healing and remembrance to the victims. It's a beautiful place. The rebuilt hospital is gorgeous, state-of-the-art facility. It's very evident that Joplin has done an exemplary job of coming back stronger than ever.
This is where the media gathered and where one could see the enormity of the disaster, stretching literally across the horizon as far as the eye could see.
Today, Ground Zero has been turned into hallowed ground, but it's also a place of memorials.
161 trees have been planted here to honor the dead. A circular sculpture, like a wristband, honors volunteers. Storm debris creates a mosaic, and the metal outlines of houses represent lost homes.
So this plaque bears the names of the 161 people killed that night, but there's also another memorial across the street. Of all the many images of Joplin, one of the most enduring had to be St. John's Hospital.
From west to east, new construction is mostly what one sees. From here, we'll drive east through the tornado's path, and what you see is much of the same. Empty lots are scattered everywhere, but mostly you see new homes and apartments, new businesses, new churches. About 90% of new buildings now have either indoor or outdoor tornado shelters.
Joplin amassed a total of $2.8 billion in 2011 USD in damage. That's equivalent to about $3 billion of damage today. The Joplin tornado is still the costliest single tornado in U.S. history. It's also the single deadliest tornado on record since 1950, not prior to, but after 1950. The Joplin tornado took over 500 businesses, 7,500 residential structures, thousands of those having to be demolished and rebuilt. As we mentioned earlier, this was part of a massive outbreak as well, with a staggering 241 confirmed tornadoes between May 21st and May 26th. And again, this is all happening just 3 or 4 weeks after the April 27th, 2011 super outbreak. Sheltering when people hear a tornado warning is not a given, and unfortunately we cannot assume that by someone hearing a tornado siren that they're going to shelter. There are a lot of other human behavior components that go into someone ascertaining a tornado, deciding whether it's a threat, and then subsequently taking shelter. Oftentimes, to most of the time, people will need a second confirmation of a perceived threat before they'll do anything to protect themselves against it. Ultimately, taking shelter from storms or tornadoes specifically comes down to our own lived experience, whether or not we've been through one, how scared we are of them, how bad we think it's going to be. So this played a huge role in the Joplin tornado, as a lot of people didn't shelter immediately despite the fact that they heard the tornado sirens. This is because many of them needed that second confirmation. And while there are probably a number of the fatalities in Joplin that occurred from improper sheltering or inability to shelter in time, we also have to note that there is a large majority of fatalities from EF-5 tornadoes that occur simply because the tornado is too strong. So we can't just attribute every single death to improper sheltering. There are instances where people take every precautionary measure. There are simply some storms that are too strong. There's a good possibility that you won't make it. But these are extremely relevant factors and do make up for a huge portion of deaths in tornadoes, where people aren't adequately sheltered, are not adequately prepared. This kind of survey only reinforces what we know to be true, that tornado sirens have lost their efficacy. They have for a long time. So the goal ultimately is to really figure out a better way to issue warnings, figure out how we can get them to be taken more seriously, and also significantly reduce the amount of tornado warnings that are issued, which is extremely tricky. It's not as simple as it sounds. Obviously, there's radar indicated tornadoes, which can produce tornadoes. They're not confirmed on the ground yet. This is why a lot of people don't take it seriously, because we have a ton of radar indicated tornado warnings. So there's a really tricky area. It's not a black and white situation. This has been a big one. This has been an intense one. I hope I covered everything. I would love to hear your personal stories if you have them. I really do appreciate everyone when they leave me comments giving me their personal stories and anecdotes. I really appreciate that, and I know sometimes it can be tough to share your story. Sometimes it's traumatic. The fact that you guys are sharing that here with me on this channel is very much appreciated. That's very special, and I thank you. I also want to try something new with you guys and do a live stream once a week. I haven't picked the day yet, but probably Thursday or Friday night I'll do a live stream, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of a case study, and we could just talk, and really just a chance for me to hang out with you guys a little bit more. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video. We will see you guys in the next one. Bye.